Hello there, good morning, how are you? Great, it's a beautiful day, and we are so happy to have you here. To all you ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure, definitely, to welcome you all to our beautiful home, Puerto Rico, and as we call it, the island of enchantment. Thank you for joining us today. The government of Puerto Rico is so proud to host this 2019 Florida Caribbean Cruise Association Annual Convention Trade Show. And during the next few days, we will be sharing knowledge, experiences, and strategies to create new opportunities, which is so important nowadays, and continue to further grow with our industry and the position of the Caribbean as a preferred destination. This morning, we would like to acknowledge the presence of government representatives and ministers of tourism from the FCCA member countries. But first, for the opening remarks of 2019 Florida Caribbean Cruise Association Annual Convention and Trade Show, we welcome to the stage two people who truly believe in the potential of the Caribbean as leading cruise destination. So please welcome with a warm applause President of the FCCA, Ms. Michelle Page, and the Chairman, Carnival Corporation PLC, and Chairman of the FCCA, Mr. Mickey Harrison. Mickey?
I'd like to start by recognizing, I'm sure you all are very aware of the devastating events that occurred in the Abacos and Grand Bahama Island. And I would like to dedicate a moment of silence for all the victims in the Bahamas, if you would adhere to a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's important for us to note, as we tried to do back in the past with Maria and other hurricanes, that it's very important to pass on the message that the Bahamas is open for business. There are 14 islands operating normally. In fact, Carnival just recently started going back to Freeport and Grand Bahama. I think it's important to get that message out as the media continues to play up the devastation as they should. They send the message that the Bahamas is not available, and clearly it's important that that tourist engine get restarted in the Bahamas. So all the media that's here, anything you can do to get that word out would be greatly appreciated. We started FCCA started a campaign to try to deal with those things back with the Caribbean is open after, I think it was Maria. And we created what we call FCCA Caribbean for Everyone. And I'd like to acknowledge the marketing partners, Barbados, the British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Puerto Rico, St. Lucia, St. Martin, and the United States Virgin Islands. I also want to thank all the cruise lines that helped in the Bahamas. And I could say with strong conviction that virtually every cruise line stepped up and did a great job in helping in any way they could. And cruise lines did it in different ways that they could and could be most effective. And so I want to thank all the cruise lines in the industry for all their efforts in helping the people of the Bahamas. Thank you.
On behalf of the 21 member lines of the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association, we're all honored to have Mickey as our chairman and our leader. We'd like to acknowledge the leaders of government that are here today. Carla Campos, the executive director of Puerto Rico Tourism Company, and it's an honor to be here in Puerto Rico. The Honorable Mia Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados. Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Cayman Islands Deputy Premier and Minister for Tourism. Mauricio Villaraigosa of Mexico, the Governor of Yucatan. Alan Chastanet, St. Lucia's Prime Minister. Andrew Fahey, the Virgin Islands Premier. British Virgin Islands. Albert Bryson Jr., the Governor of the Virgin Islands, U.S. First and foremost, we want to thank you for your commitment to the cruise industry, for believing of the economic impact that the engine of the cruise industry brings to you. This conference is for you. We've done it for 26 years, and we've recognized the input that you've put into the conference. We've tried to put that input into the ingredients for the conference and the trade show. Please give us feedback for what it is that you need, because this is for you. Without further ado, Mickey and I would like to introduce one of the most charismatic people in the industry. When he walks into a room, he lights it up. And there's a saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So when Arnold says something, everybody listens. Arnold Donald, the CEO of Carnival Corporation and PLC.
Okay, now all you guys are saying, why did it just go dark in here, right? Yeah, okay, thanks. Good morning and welcome, everyone. And thank you, Michelle, for that wonderful, kind, overstated introduction. So I'd also like to recognize any dignitaries and all the executives here with us this morning, and of course, all my colleagues from Carnival Corporation. In deference to all the other cruise companies here, I won't say all their names, but you guys can wave so everybody knows who you are and they can find you when they need you. And then, of course, especially our chairman and the chairman of FCCA, Mickey Harrison. I also want to thank Carla and Discover Puerto Rico for all your support of FCCA and hosting this conference. And it is really good to be back here in Puerto Rico, especially after the devastation of Hurricane Maria just 2 years ago here. You know, Maria is regarded as the worst natural disaster in recorded history to affect Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Dominica. And so I think it's especially meaningful that we're here today, and it's really good to see Puerto Rico back in business. And in fact, new data from Discover Puerto Rico shows that year-to-date, tourism revenue and passenger arrivals at an all-time high, and that the island's tourism industry is one of Puerto Rico's shining lights, and it's definitely a success story. So Puerto Rico is recovering, estimated at least 4 times faster than my hometown, New Orleans, did after Hurricane Katrina. In fact, the home I was raised in and actually born in, wasn't even born in the hospital, I was born in that house, still has Katrina markings on it, and it's now 2019. But this is a recovery here still in progress, and it certainly has not been easy, and one that continues to need our support. So of course, we can't talk about hurricanes without turning our attention to what Mickey referenced with the Bahamas. I'd like to express, along with what he already has, our deep concern and sympathy for our friends and our partners in the Bahamas who just 2 months ago experienced a storm of epic and catastrophic intensity like they've never experienced before. And Dorian was an unprecedented 24-hour nightmare, wreaking havoc and destruction to Abacos and Grand Bahamas. And it does seem that the storms are becoming more violent and they're occurring more often. But regardless of any future predictions, obviously we all need to be prepared for even stronger storms in the future. So we are your partner. We're your partner in the good times and in the hard times. And we are committed to the islands of the Caribbean. The Caribbean islands were the first destination for the cruise industry 50 years ago, and they remain the #1 destination today for the majority of first-time cruisers and for the largest cruise companies. Cruise lines have already donated and are raised $8 million in relief efforts for the Bahamas, and that includes more than 10 million pounds of food and supplies, filling more than 250 shipping containers by Carnival Corporation. It includes 20,000 meals per day, as well as water, medical supplies, generators, and a team of specially trained employees and volunteers to assist with logistics and food and beverage efforts by Royal Caribbean Cruises. 400 pallets of humanitarian aid, along with 300 qualified volunteer and 150 Bahamians on a single relief mission by Bahamas Paradise Cruise Line. MSC Group use this cargo and cruise resources with a focus on providing semi-permanent prefabricated modular housing. Disney Cruise Line supported its Bahamian-based crew members who live in impacted areas with supplies and direct aid, and Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings also used their cruise ships to deliver numerous supplies and very meaningful support. So we at Carnival Corporation, along with Royal Caribbean, have reaffirmed and accelerated over $400 million in investment projects in the Bahamas, especially in the island of Grand Bahama, where Dorian destroyed the eastern end of the island. And that's on top of the significant investments already in place. And just 2 years ago, with Hurricane Maria and Hurricane Ivan, the cruise lines are working with the Bahamas, or just like 2 years ago, working with the Bahamas to drive cruise tourism and re-inject economic benefit. Now, in these situations, our goal at Carnival Corporation and throughout the cruise industry is to partner with government and community to quickly return ships to affected islands as soon as possible. That's what we do, and that's what the cruise industry does. Last year alone, Bahamas cruise tourism, according to the FCCA, generated almost $406 million and more than 9,000 jobs, paying $155 million in wages for that island nation alone. Our average cruise call represented more than $650,000 in local economic benefits. In the Bahamas and elsewhere throughout the Caribbean, the cruise industry invests tens of billions of dollars, and we stand ready and willing to do more. But we need your help. We cannot do it alone. We need you, all of you, as our strong, willing, and enthusiastic partners. Now, we know from experience that an investment in a port is not enough. It's not about the port and the port fees, it's about the economic multiplier effect. And there we have a common goal. You want more people to come, and we want to bring more people to you. In fact, within our Carnival Corporation, we refer to this as port and destination development, with destination really being the key. Together, the port and the destination create the total guest experience. So we need to think beyond just the ports and to look at the total guest experience, creating venues where visitors will spend their money in your local stores, your local restaurants, and with your local guides. And most importantly, experience the beauty of the people of the Caribbean region, delivering the experiences that distinguish your island nation and make our guests anxious to return. So we want your island to stand out in their memory with a unique identity because we know it's there because we've seen it. We want you to share what you love about your country with our guests. What makes you proud to be from St. Lucia? What do you love about your country of Barbados? What's that one experience in Cayman guests can't stop talking about? Where are those photo spots in the Virgin Islands? It's that passion you have for your home that will appeal ultimately to our guests. Now, at Carnival Corporation, we have nine cruise line brands, and about 13 million people cruise with us every year. Our guests are not one size fits all. Our guests today come from almost every country in the world. They are all ages with different backgrounds and many different interests. Not everyone wants to go snorkeling or lay on a beach. There are many families that would love to go to your church for a high mass on a Sunday, and perhaps meeting with locals by participating in a community lunch afterwards. We know our guests well. We know what they want. And we want to share that insight with you and work together to develop local products and experiences. Please meet with us and talk with us. Share your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns. I can't be more direct than that. My colleagues and I have packed we have packed itineraries, back-to-back meetings in our short time here, and that's really great. The FCCA is a long-standing voice and industry representative in the Caribbean and also stands ever willing to help you reach your goals and objectives. Engage with them. Together, we want to work with you and alongside you, and we are ready to provide our perspective and insight to any destination that wants to build and improve their visitor experience. We know there's so much more that can be done. We know there's so much more that we can do. And as I said earlier, our guests are a diverse group of people. We've learned that when appealing to our potential cruise guests, It's not about demographics, it's about something we call psychographics. And when they look at their hard-earned vacation days, it's not where they want to go, it's often why they want to go. So I'd encourage you to think beyond the traditional idea of a cruise guest. You know, our guests no longer want to just visit a destination. For many, they've been there and done that. They want to experience the destination in all the ways possible. And what does that mean for you? It means focusing on your destination's unique and authentic story. That can include all aspects of your culture, history, music, food, the natural environment, entertainment, religion, architecture, and even industry. The Caribbean is a truly blessed place that is like nowhere else on earth. Within a day's sail, one can experience French, British, Dutch, Spanish, and African cultures, and how they've adapted and grown in unique ways. Now, I truly believe that your distinct appeal as a collection of beautiful yet very unique individual islands within close geographical proximity of each other, each with an authentic identity and a unique cultural heritage, is the key to your future and can be your gift to the world. And finally, and leaving the most important message for closing, I'd like to reaffirm that for Carnival Corporation, our 9 leading cruise brands, and the rest of the cruise industry, there is nothing more important to us than protecting the environment, maintaining safe operations, and meeting or exceeding all regulatory and compliance requirements wherever we operate. And while we've made mistakes in our operations, we work extremely hard to learn from those mistakes and implement policies and procedures to mitigate the risk of them ever being repeated. There is nothing more important to us than operating safely, protecting the environment, and being in compliance everywhere we operate in the world. Now, our ships feature the latest technology in advanced air quality systems, food waste processing, advanced wastewater treatment systems, recycling systems, and for our newest ships, LNG-powered propulsion and hotel systems. We strive to be good citizens, and you can trust that the 150,000 employees within our brands always strive to do the right thing. I really appreciate this opportunity to address you this morning. I hope you have a fantastic conference, and please, please seek out our people here and introduce yourself. Make the connections. We are your partners, and we're here to work with you for a great future for all of us. Gracias, merci. I'm going to mess up these next two, but I'm going to try. Dankia, danki, thank you. All right, thanks.
Thank you so much for those heartfelt words. FCCA, I must say, thank you. And yes, it's been a struggle, especially after Hurricane Maria, and my generation, a generation that wants to stay in the island. And it was a struggle, but we definitely reinvented ourselves and looked inside, and we made ourselves better. We learned and we continue. And that is what we have to keep in mind always. And each one of us has its own resources to promote the island or the Caribbean. In my world, social media. So with Apoya lo Local, which is shop local or support local, I always keep in mind exactly what we were talking about. Promoting entrepreneurs, promoting our local stores. So that is something that we definitely have to keep in mind, especially when we go and we think about where to travel. Caribbean is definitely a unique place. So someone that always says Puerto Rico is open for business is something that I want to repeat. It's a phrase that I repeat. We are open for business. And that is the message that our next speaker always says, and I love. So let's welcome the Executive Director of the Puerto Rico Tourism Company, Ms. Carla Campos.
Good morning. Welcome to Puerto Rico. On behalf of the government of Puerto Rico, Honorable Governor Wanda Vázquez Garcet, and my colleagues from the Puerto Rico government, we are so honored to have you here today. I'd like to extend a special recognition to the governors in attendance, prime ministers, my colleagues, also ministers, executives of the cruise lines, thank you for being here. Business owners, entrepreneurs, destinations, neighbors from the Caribbean, we like to extend a most sincere welcome to the Island of Enchantment. It is a privilege to have the opportunity to host you for a second year in a row. And I know Michelle always says we have that privilege because we are the only destination that has been able to host such an important conference for 2 years in a row. But we're also looking forward to year 3 and 4 and thrilled to have you here again in the upcoming years. With the experience also comes improvement, and in that sense, I would like to also congratulate the FCCA team, very hardworking team, Mario, Terry, Jessica, Adam, led by, of course, Michelle Page, who has been championing them throughout. So thank you, because I think we can all attest to the fact that together with the Puerto Rico Tourism Company's team, they have been able to put together a magnificent event. And for everyone who was with us last night, you could also attest to the fact that it is an improved setup designed specifically to be able to improve the productivity and that you can get the best out of this conference. So if we learned so much in a year, I can't even imagine what's going to happen year 3 and 4, and there's so much more FCCA Conference 2019 to go. So thank you for that. I hope that while we also meet, we have fun and enjoy Puerto Rico while doing so. We'd also like to reflect, as Mickey was saying, on what has recently happened on the Bahamas. And evidently, we can speak from experience, and it comes very close to us. I think it seems like yesterday that we were here looking back, and I was standing in this stage looking back at what had happened over the past year, in that case, late in 2018. I was speaking about overcoming adversity, and we were speaking about how we were looking forward to having a record-breaking year in cruise passenger arrivals, something that most thought was impossible when we were actually on track to being a destination that was fully recovered, and the cruise industry actually led the way. So I remember speaking about the role that the cruise lines had in that recovery, and that leadership that the rest of the sectors in the tourism economy then followed suit with. Today, I think we can talk about results. And in that sense, it is so encouraging to look back and to say that during the past fiscal year, 2018-19, ending in June of this year, Puerto Rico did receive a record-breaking 1.8 million passengers over that fiscal year. And what does that mean for our economy? That was over $250 million that was pumped into our economy just months after the worst natural disaster in our history. Most significantly, we also received 507,000 home porting passengers. And for Puerto Rico being a very strategic destination in the Caribbean, we're well positioned to grow not only in terms of transit, but also in our home porting operations, which is actually our priority. Now, to calendar year 2018, to our surprise, was also a record-breaking year, and we received 1.6 million passengers. This calendar year, 2019, we expect to be a record-breaking year with 1.7 million passengers. So we keep breaking our own records, which gets me a little worried about how we're going to sustain that in the future. Moving forward, we anticipate that for this year, we're going to grow in terms of our home porting operation. And that's really something that we communicate proudly because it speaks about the transformative power of tourism. It speaks about the fact that tourism is a force for good and that it is exactly tourism that can prove the resilience of our destinations. So I really would like to use this opportunity to thank the cruise lines for helping us in telling this story, in telling the story of a Caribbean island that was so hard hit, but that is able to come back, and that the destinations cannot do on their own. We need partners. We need very strong partners like the cruise lines that have stepped up to the plate. In general, our recovery has extended so much more than the cruise industry. And our air access that has been so important for the rest of the region, because a lot of the connectivity to the rest of the Caribbean region happens through San Juan. We can also proudly say that for this next winter season, our air capacity, meaning the amount of seats that serve the destination, is at its highest in 10 years. And that was really something that we worked hard for, because we weren't just thinking about Puerto Rico. We were thinking about the rest of the Caribbean region. As we recovered, we needed your recovery, the Caribbean islands as well. And we recognized our strategic role in also making that happen. Today, you're sitting here and you probably stayed in renovated hotels, beautiful renovated product, millions of dollars invested in all of our hospitality offering. And we look right across the street and you see the district. And the district is an entertainment complex that is gonna come to revolutionize and change the face of Puerto Rico and San Juan specifically as we know it. Just this December, we're gonna be opening the A-Loft right here in the district and expanding our operation in the district authority where we are at. And this conventions district is extremely important, and the linkage between the cruise industry, the home porting operations, the transit calls, and what's happening here in the district is really gonna help us position Puerto Rico in a much stronger way. So we're excited, and we hope that by next year when we greet you again, you're gonna be able to enjoy a new entertainment complex in the district. So Puerto Rico has really tried to step up to the plate to bet on tourism as a force for good that is able to transform our economy. But as we saw over the past month, our partnership with the rest of the Caribbean is crucial. So we are beyond thrilled to be able to host you, because we recognize that the conversations that take place in this forum are better positioning you as well to be able to better serve the cruise industry. We're one itinerary, it's not individual destinations. The itineraries don't exist if it is not because we can work together. So I encourage us to continue learning from each other, to continue learning from what we all have gone through and better preparing ourselves for the future. Let's do this together with the private sector, let's do it together with the cruise lines, because I think there is so much more than the Caribbean can be doing to position ourselves and to continue positioning ourselves as the leaders of the cruise industry in the world, and let I say, of the tourism industry in general. So thank you for being here. Welcome to Puerto Rico, and we hope you have a wonderful and productive FCCA 26th FCCA conference. Thank you.
We talk partnership, but partnership is more than just a word. It's a commitment. The cruise industry is committed to our destination partners. I had the opportunity to meet a dynamic individual a little bit over a year ago, and I felt the presence of greatness. I felt when this person spoke that it wasn't just words. She moved me. I felt that we were souls in another life. When she speaks, she imparts wisdom. That's how we knew that hold on to your seats, because she's going to move you too. Please welcome the Honorable Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Moore Motley.
Good morning to you all, distinguished guests all. And I find myself repeating Arnold's thank you for what really was an overrated introduction. I apologize for my nasal sound, but even with the best intentions, we know that there are plans that are capable of detracting and distracting. And this morning, we started with reference to one that was not so pleasant, and that is in seeking to pay tribute and to remember those who regrettably have lost their lives and are no longer with us because of the passage of Hurricane Dorian through our region over the course 2 months ago. But I find myself today wanting to speak to you about partnership and the parameters of partnership. But let me first thank the Florida Cruise Ship Association for inviting me. My very good friend Alan Chasney addressed you last year and started a conversation with you to begin to allow you to better appreciate where we are, who we are, and what we must navigate in order to be able to ensure that we can do better for our countries and our people. And in a real sense, my own journey in public life, and ironically, Michelle, the FCCA's first conference, I believe, was in Barbados in the very year that we were elected as a government, the very year I was first appointed as a Minister of Cabinet. So I'd like to think of a parallel tract of prosperity for both of us. But when I started to reflect on the parameters of partnership, it made me realize that what we are really about is staying the course and going the distance. Staying the course and going the distance. Because it is easy for us to sprint and do well. And you've done well. Let's put it in context. The tourism industry has been growing way beyond the pace of growth of the exports and merchandise across the world. The tourism industry, according to the tourism reports, have exceeded all numbers than targets that they set themselves. And within the context of the tourism industry, cruise is undisputably the largest and fastest grower. And within the context of cruise, this region is responsible for just over a third of your calls and just under a half of your revenue based on the information shared. Now, it is important to understand context in order to understand whether we have the capacity and the commitment to stay the course and to go the distance. How do these small islands and these not so small countries, all together bound by that thing called the Caribbean Sea, how do we command the position that we are responsible for just under half of the revenue for the largest growing sector in the fastest growing industry in the entire global community? That's context. And once we understand that context, we begin to understand that, like Usain Bolt, you don't want to lose the race. You don't want to lose the race. Or, Adam, I commend you for your rowing on Saturday. You don't want to lose the race ever. But staying the course and going the distance means, therefore, that the partnership which we have, and we thank you for it, has now to be even further strengthened. The people of the Bahamas understand now that Carnival is not, and other cruise lines are not fair weather friends. And we thank you for your quick and appropriate support, because let's get real. There are very few other entities in the world that can deliver 20,000 meals a day in the way in which you have to the people of the Bahamas, in the speed with which you have. And that is parcel and is for us partially why we appreciate not just the partnership with cruise, but the appreciation that tourism, more than any other sector, can grow back the quickest, because it depends on how we host and what experience we create, whether on boat or on land. And human beings enjoy the range of experiences and are far more tolerant and far more discerning than sometimes those who sit in marketing rooms give them credit for. They're not interested in a one-size-fits-all prescription. They are interested in the wonderful diversity of the human race. And this Caribbean, for that reason, creates that experience, as Arnold said earlier in his speech, and he left out the Arab experience, that can give you in one short period a microcosm of every culture of the world. And therefore, what is the story of the Caribbean that we are fighting to protect? And what is the message of the region that has to be born today? There are, for us, moments in history that we would rather not remember. But equally, we are conscious that those moments in history so blended and conspired to create a unique experience called the Caribbean that does, in fact, bring together, we like to think, the best of every race and religion that exists in the world. And that's part of the allure. It's not just the physical environment, but it is who we are and how we express ourselves. But we have, at the same time, to recognize that the global community more than ever needs the story and the expression of that uniqueness of the Caribbean civilization. 11 people counted dead in Chile from protests yesterday. People in Lebanon rising up. No one knows what will happen in the Mediterranean or in Asia over the course of the next few months or a year, because the world finds itself in that point of turbulence. And mercifully for us, we've been able to hold any threat to the Caribbean Sea from Venezuela down. All this does is to reinforce why it is necessary for us to be strategic and to work together in partnership to be able to create that oasis of happiness that all human beings long and want. But we can't do it by serendipity. And there are a number of things that we must now confront in order to be able to stay the course and to go the distance. The first and most important, of course, is our climate. And we are on the front line of all of the damage that is coming as a result of the climate crisis. But we were not on the front line of those who caused it in the first place through the industrial emissions and other behaviors. And where does that leave us? Being on the front line of a climate crisis means that we've got to spend money to do things that we would not otherwise have had to spend money to do. And therefore, there's still a limited pool from which to draw. That recognition by this industry, especially in the course of the last year, is perhaps the most significant development for me that has happened. That the cruise industry, in recognizing that their investments need to go beyond the destination, but also to actual port development, given the limited fiscal space of Caribbean governments to do what they have to do, is a significant departure from the past, and a development that I would wish to commend and salute all of you here today for, because it is critical for us. And I thank the Prime Minister of St. Lucia for his reminding us of it yesterday in the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with Carnival and with Royal in order to be able to build out facilities in his own country. We are in discussions, Barbados as well, for the same thing. And you are doing it in Cayman and other islands. And the bottom line is that tomorrow morning, today, as a middle-income country, in spite of the passage of Hurricane Dorian, the Bahamas cannot go and borrow a single cent from the World Bank today as we speak. In spite of the United Nations Secretary General describing Dorian as not Category 5, but Category Hell. Now, how does a world that has a bank that was built to be responsible for reconstruction and development after World War II refuse to accept its responsibility to help countries in the region that are on the front line of climate crisis to adapt, mitigate, or rebuild in a battle that we did not cause, and for reasons that relate purely to whether we have a certain level of GDP and certain level of per capita income or not. It is almost offensive. And a few weeks ago, I gave a series of speeches that spoke to the extent to which, regrettably, for too many outside of this sector and industry, the Caribbean remains invisible, and regrettably for some, dispensable. And that is why I've come here this morning to speak about the positive aspects of how we can establish the parameters of partnership. Because in that very simple recognition of the assumption of responsibility to help build out port infrastructure, you remove from us an obligation to carry aspects of infrastructural costs that would prevent us from dealing with other critical aspects such as water and sewage and roads and health and education. This is not just a speech, this is real. And therefore, the ability for you to recognize that your continued growth as you have had, in the last 5 years, I'm told that your growth has been in excess of 20%, depends on a successful civilization remaining vibrant. Depends on us removing from our lexicon the notion of climate refugees. And climate refugees may appear to be excessive for some, but not for the people of Montserrat who know that they were refugees when they had to evacuate the island because of the volcano. And not for the people of Barbuda who were mass evacuated off the entire island after Hurricane Maria. And not for the people of Puerto Rico who have found themselves going to the mainland in larger numbers than they might otherwise have gone. and indeed not for the people of Abaco or Grand Bahama. The bottom line is that the details and the planning of our partnership have now to rest not on parallel tracks, but on the certainty of a common purpose with the clarity that comes only from conversation and agreement and building consensus. I asked myself, as a head of government of the Caribbean community, of that community that is responsible for almost 50% of the revenue of the cruise industry globally, that is responsible for the largest growth in tourism, that is responsible for the greatest addition of value in the global community, I asked myself, how is it that there is no meeting between the heads of government of the Caribbean community, English, French, Spanish, Dutch, and the owners and managers of the cruise industry? And do we expect that things will continue the same without planning or protection? Or ought we to pause at this point in time and secure the next 50 to 100 years? I know that I opt for the latter. And because I opt for the latter, I want formally, Michelle, to place on record, you've been to Barbados once and it was good. You went to Barbados twice and it was better. But like Lionel Richie says with a lady, 3 times is even more superlative. So I want to offer formally that we are prepared to host a meeting between the owners and leaders of the cruise industry and the heads of government of the entire Caribbean. Not Caribbean community, as in CARICOM, but all of the states that are literally touching the Caribbean Sea. And I do so because Barbados is chairing the Association of Caribbean States, but we will also be taking up the chairmanship of CARICOM in January. And I would not know how to be able to justify that chairmanship without saying to the people of the region that we have worked together to be able to protect what is our most valuable resource, and that thing which binds us together, the Caribbean Sea. And if you may give me just 2 minutes. 1, we need to protect the Caribbean Sea against war and for it always to be a zone of peace. We have no interest in getting involved in the affairs of any other country. And we believe in the United Nations Declaration of the Principles of Self-Determination and Non-Interference. But we are conscious that we will do all that is within our power to maintain the Caribbean Sea as a zone of peace. And we have said this to the large and the not so large, to the mighty and the not so mighty. And we will take positions of principle to defend that, because this is who we are and this is all that we have. Secondly, the Caribbean must remain a sea that is literally capable of protecting our islands and feeding our people. And what do I mean by that? The continued rise in sea levels and warming of the oceans is doing serious damage to our coastal communities. And for many of our countries, our economies are coastal. Hence, our determination to be at the front line of the battle in this climate crisis is a sine qua non, is a basis upon which everything that we do from here on in starts with our understanding of how we manage climate crisis. Because, regrettably, the global community has not yet accepted that this is the most important battle, and that there are some countries on the front line of it that may or may not survive 50 to 100 years from now. And who do I refer to? I saw a slide at the United Nations last year that will forever haunt me. And Alan knows, Shasne knows what I mean. It was a slide that recognized that the first countries to suffer from 2 degrees and under and 3 degrees and under are the Arctic and Antarctic summer sheets, Greenland, and the coral islands of the world found in the Caribbean and the Pacific and wherever else in the oceans. But what concerned me is that it was said as if it was a given. Now, imagine a Caribbean that either has evacuees or refugees. Where are you going to carry them? To what ports? To enjoy what experiences? Arnold spoke about the importance of twinning port and destination. So that what we do to be able to promote the action necessary to stave off climate change is absolutely critical if we are going to ensure that you continue to stay the course and go the distance with this industry that has, I'm told, more than 100 ships yet to be christened and to hit the water. In terms of securing our prosperity of the sea, we need to make sure that we also protect it against those who would want, without license and without compensation, to poach and to overfish. And to take away, potentially, the opportunities for the development of local fishing industries, as well as the ability for our countries to be able to sustain our populations, particularly against chronic non-communicable diseases. Excuse me. And finally, we need to protect our ocean, our Caribbean Sea against pollution. And you and our countries, whether in terms of ships or runoff from agriculture or sewage, have a common battle because nobody wants to come and sail in an ocean that is clearly and patently polluted. Now, how best do we protect those objectives? Small countries, some of whom cannot borrow enough to replace water mains. Small countries, some of whom may be doing reasonably well, considered middle income, but within 24 to 48 hours can be dealing with the most basic issues. In our own case in Barbados, moving from qualitative issues affecting education, if we were hit, to basic access to schools within a 24 to 48 hour period. Countries where water mains were laid over 120 years ago, now fighting battles to be able to sustain water through the mains, to reduce the fact that in most of our countries, the level of loss of water accounts for 40 to 50, in some instances, regrettably, 60% of non-revenue water, because those mains were laid by countries that had empires and not countries 120 years ago. So against that background, how do we stay the course and run the distance? I am a lady who believes in optimism. I see a glass that is half full always. And I believe that the platform that we have here, not just in terms of investment, but in terms of experience, in terms of skills, will add significant value to our being able to transform our countries, even in the midst of these challenges. Because if I know one thing, and one thing about the world bringing together all of the races and religions of the world to fend together, is that we are a resilient people. And you here in Puerto Rico continue to show it, as do all others who bear the scars of the climate crisis well. So my friends, I've stood here this morning to speak to the larger issues, conscious that some may have expected, and I may perhaps do it on a different occasion, as to how we integrate and bring levels of economic enfranchisement to more and more of our people in respect of what they can benefit from the tourists visiting, and how do we cover the insurance for them. And once again, I think that we've started to do that, and that is the case of this industry being responsive to want to help us to be able to self-insure some of the smaller operators and put us into contact with those who can help us with that, because your legal departments will preclude you from being able to accept tours from small people without being able to work out how do you deal with the liability, because you have a tortious exposure if you don't do it. We know all of that, and we're going to deal with all of that, because that's the minutiae of doing business, and that's where you have officials and we have officials to deal with all of that. But what we don't have is the commitment to ensure that in the saving of this Caribbean Sea and in the protection of the prosperity of this Caribbean Sea, that is adding greater value to a global economy than any other sector. Are we doing sufficient to ensure that we can stay the course and go the distance, such that those looking back 30 years from now or 50 years from now will say that we didn't get here by serendipity. We got here because people understood the value and the worth of what they had, were prepared to protect it, and to recognize that this oasis means so much more to the global civilization, that it has not just simply been the expression of how we can bring people together to live in this space without bloodshed, but it has also been about how we can add economic value to the global economy in meaningful ways. The people who we see in the industry, the people like yourself, Mickey, who are pioneers in this sector, understood it. But like with everything else, it's not just the early pioneers that have the hard job. The hardest job comes in sustaining the progress and staying the course. Because as we have seen only too often, it is easily capable of being lost. So my friends, I look forward to working in partnership, but clearly establishing the parameters of partnership, because in this partnership is the possibility of greater prosperity. And in this partnership is the example to the rest of the world, how different people from different backgrounds, in different spaces, from capital to labor, can work together in a common cause to the benefit of all. There are those who have perspectives, but let not the perspectives tell the story. Let the partnership and the progress that we make through that partnership be our story to the rest of the world. Thank you, and God bless.
Wow. We're honored to present our essay contest winners. The theme of the contest was, many cruise passengers use cruising as a way to sample different destinations. What impression does my country leave on these passengers, and how does it, or should it, attract them back as stayover guests? The junior division first place, Barbados. Noel Alder, 9 years old, and also third place in the senior division, Nobi Holder. Prime Minister? Minister Carey? Second place, St. Lucia, Patrice Antone. Minister Dominic Fidi. Prime Minister. Mickey. Third place, Jamaica, Joy Roberts. Here to Jamaica. First place for the senior division, St. Martin. Second place in the senior division, the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, Danielle Brown. Joe Bushalti, are you here? We pronounce this, the 26th Annual FCCA Conference and Trade Show, open.
Thank you so much for being here, for your time. We appreciate it so much, and welcome again to our beautiful and amazing Puerto Rico. Enjoy this 2019 Florida Caribbean Cruise Association Annual Convention and Trade Show. Enjoy, connect, have fun. Thank you for being with us. Have a great day.